So this is the Cacula from FOBOS Knives. I've opened it, I carried it, I did some hard use tests on it. What do I have to say about this? This knife is absolutely very wise man on YouTube with a long white beard had said before, a very powerful statement on YouTube: show me, don't tell me, show me. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Okay, so if I had to classify this knife as anything, while you take a look at that really amazingly made, beautiful leather sheath that these Cacula comes with, or its option to come with, I would say this is a very extreme knife. Now, why do you say it's extreme, Joe? Because honestly, you can go from cutting vegetables at the campfire to picking up this knife and using it to defend your life against an attacking animal or an attacking assailant, for that matter. And I don't fancy myself as someone who knows or is very proficient as fighting with a knife, but if I had to fight with a knife, this is definitely one that you would want to fight with, or, you know, rather self-defense. You know, in terms of, we don't talk about fighting with knives, you talk about self-defense. So you have your mercy side on the pommel, and then you have your deadly side on the edge. So depending on what you want to do with the knife, your mercy side or your deadly side, this is definitely a knife you would want to use, have at your side. Now I'm going to be cutting all sorts of materials with this knife just to show you the strength and resilience of the edge of this knife, as well as some really heavy impact tests to show you the strength of this knife. But before we get into that, let's get into some specs of the knife. All right, so the FOBOS Cacula is a mid-sized fixed blade with a highly functional design. The blade length is around 4.31 inches. The cutting edge is about 3.86 inches. The handle length is about really comfy, very versatile, 5.34 inches. The overall length is about 9.65 inches. The Cacula is made from a high quality CPM S35 VN steel, which is one of my favorites. It has a blade hardness of about 60 HRC, a blade thickness of about 0.19 inches. It's a classic drop point flat blade. It's a colored PVD coating on the blade, and it's got a kind of like a tan Micarta handle, which is very comfortable. Handle thickness is about 0.71 inches. It's got a red, beautiful red liners, weighs in around 7 ounces, and it's made in the USA. What can I say? This knife really just speaks to me. Between the aesthetics of the knife, the contour of the knife, and the way it was designed, the micarta, the choice of colors, the knife definitely just speaks to me. But when you finally hold it in your hand and you feel the extreme comfort of the micarta handle, the way it was designed, I know there's a whole philosophy to how he made this handle. I can't explain it to you, but whatever Eric did, it really does work. The knife really just, it is extremely comfortable in the hand. The generous jimping on both sides of the blade, depending on how you want to hold it, you always have jimping on each side of the handle. The knife is just a very comfortable, utilitarian type of knife. It really is just a beautiful piece of work. You'll see now with the cutting demo that I did just how versatile and tough this knife can actually be. All right, guys, so if any of these cutting materials look familiar to you, special thanks to Scab at Quiet Boys Outdoors. My brother sent me a whole box of goodies of industrial strength materials for me to cut with. Here's, of course, some ratchet straps. That'll look a lot familiar to you, and it kind of went through it pretty well. Here's some bungee cord. I just kind of really tried to throw everything that I had in my arsenal at this knife, and you'll see electrical cable here, 3 copper wire. You'll see that this thing kept on going and going and going. It wanted more and more and more. Here's just some typical rope, polyurethane rope, camping rope, and let me tell you something, sandblast hose, steel reinforced sandblast hose. This stuff is freaking tough. Now, when you see Scab cutting this stuff, he kind of gets through it pretty well because the guy's built like a freaking tank. Okay, this stuff is very hard to cut, regardless of the knife or the sharpness of the knife. It's a very resilient material to cut with, especially being steel reinforced. This thing can definitely put a lot of pressure and damage to the edge. Not like we're trying to damage the edge, but just to show you how good the edge retention is, how good the heat tempering is, how good the quality of the steel is to get through some really industrial strength, hard material like this. pretty sure once I start cutting with this thing a lot more, I'm going to get used to the angle that you have to attack this stuff. But this stuff is really freaking tough. You can see that steel reinforcement in the middle there. It went through it pretty well, and you'll see later on in the video how there was no damage to the edge whatsoever, which was very surprising to me. Now, this is not a chopping knife, guys. Obviously, you know it's not a knife that's made to chop with. So why do I do this for? This just goes to testing or demonstrating the strength and resilience of the edge, to show you from the maker, from the OEM, how good the steel was, how good the heat tempering was, and how good this thing is going to hold up for you. So if you ever find yourself in a survival pinch and you need to basically process wood or really beat the shit out of this a little bit, you know that it can handle it. Not that I recommend a knife this size to be a chopping type of knife, but just could show you how much this knife can take. And look at the bites that this thing was taking in this really hard petrified wood. A little bit of an edge test here, guys. Just basically do a double check to see how this thing is holding up. Now, the mercy part of the blade, I'm really just hammering it into the wood just to show you the indents, how well this thing holds up, also to the impact of slamming into the wood. And let me tell you something, that will definitely leave a mark. You don't want to be on the other side of that thing. But that wasn't enough for me. I wanted to kind of hit this into the brick. Again, I'm not trying to damage or destroy the knife. I just wanted to show you. Again, don't try this at home. I wanted to show you, and look at the indents it's making to the brick. I wanted to show you the construction of this knife, how freaking solid and badass this knife is made. Barely a mark, no dents, no cracks or anything on the extended tang of that breaker there. Absolutely impressive to know that slamming into the brick, not much damage whatsoever. Now here, of course, I'm going into a steel reinforced tire. Now, this has been a culprit in damaging some other edges that I've used on this type of test. This kind of went into the tire. I hammered it in just to get it in there, and I cut right through that steel reinforced tire, and I did not see any damages to the edge, and that really did impress me, because I have damaged some other knives, okay, that didn't hold up to this type of test, and this did this with flying colors. No damage, no chips, nothing whatsoever, not even a scratch on the edge. Very impressed with this S35 VN steel. Again, I'm a big fan of that steel, but the heat tempering is what makes or breaks the knife. Again, it's not a wood slicing tool, but it is honestly a utilitarian tool. You can slice with this, and it kept on going. I threw as much as I possibly can at this knife, and it really just honestly kept on going. But you can see this, the fine slices that this knife is taking into these wood pieces here. Very, very impressed with the performance of this knife, being kind of a good all-rounder. It's like an all-rounder, good all-purpose type of knife. It's a self-defense knife that's also a good all-rounder if you need it to be an everyday fixie, an everyday fixed blade camping knife at your side. It could handle everything that I threw at this thing. Now, it's not a bushcrafting knife. It's not going to handle itself as a real good bushcrafting knife, but it handled itself in everything that I threw at it with these demonstrations. Again, as Scab says, nothing scientific here. I'm just kind of playing with the knife to see how much it can take and how much it can handle. And if there's any breakdown whatsoever in the construction of the knife or anything else, this is a leather belt. Still has that sharpness. Still edge retention is still there after slamming this thing as much as I did. Batoning, again, don't recommend batoning with a knife this size. Just showing you that how well built this thing is out of the box, that you can really give this thing some freaking hell, and it will keep on going and going and going. Some stabbing tests, really a great penetration. Great penetration out of this knife, stabbing it. It was just a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun really doing everything that I did with this knife. A lot of fun to kind of play with this thing. Now here I'm just kind of just testing the point. I'm testing the point, the strength of the point of this knife. And I wanted to kind of really get that in there, move it around in the point, dig that in, and see if I had any deformations of the point, any bends, any chips, or anything like that. I didn't think I would, because this thing is really built well. I mean, it's great American quality, great craftsmanship, great steel. Everything about this is just screams ultra, ultra premium quality. And I really kind of just wiggled it in, digged it right into that piece of wood. And you can see how deep I went into that. And there's really no deformation. Nice reinforced tip you can see on that spine there. Nice thick spine, great contour and how he made this knife and designed it. Edge is fine, point is fine. This thing is freaking badass. And again, it just wanted more and more. Cut some more electrical cord here just to see how the edge retention's holding up. I didn't see really any change in how sharp this thing was from when I started to when I ended. Still cut some more wood here, and finishing up this cutting demo, showing you how the strength of this knife. After all of that cutting and all of that chopping, all the pressure I put on it, it still wanted more, and it still cut really, really well. Final inspection. You can see there's not even a scratch on the edge. The point is great. Everything is fine. Between the sandblasting hose, you know, the steel reinforced tires, steel reinforced hose, cutting the belts, cutting all the rope, slamming this into a brick, everything is fine. No chips on the extended tang from the brick. It really, really impressed me of how good the quality is on the craftsmanship of this knife with everything I put this thing through. And it's just, it can go on for more and more and more, and the edge is still great. So at this point, guys, this is after the cutting. I simply really just alcoholed this thing up, cleaned this thing up pretty well, and you can see there's barely any scratches. I mean, it's still, the blade still looks almost immaculate like it first came out of the box. It really doesn't look like it really did any work. What amazes me the most is nothing in terms of scratches here on the pommel as well. This thing looks fantastic. Now, when I had said that these knives give me a vibe, they give me a certain feeling, like I'm really vibing these knives, really do set a precedence with me as far as being really high quality American knives. I mean, I shouldn't even keep on saying American, rather they're American or not American. These are just very high quality made knives. Great steel, tough as nails. I mean, you could see how much abuse I tried to put this thing through, and it still kept on going. I'm really looking forward to reviewing the next two Phobos knives that I have from Eric. I have no doubt they're going to do as good or better than what this was, because they're a little bit more robust in their handles and in the blade. This Cacula is a real deal, tough, very well made knife. It really did a great job. You saw what this thing went through, you saw what I pushed this thing through, and it kept on wanting more and more. Really digging this Cacula. I think it's a great option for a good utilitarian knife, or if you want just a knife to be confident at your side as a good self-defense type of knife. This is a very good knife, and it's a handsome, really good looking, aesthetically pleasing knife. And don't forget, before you leave, take a look at this video coming up next. Joe from JS Bladecraft. This is the Cacula from Phobos Knives. I'll see you when I see you. Peace and love to each and every one of you. Ciao.